Have you ever felt that spark just go out a little bit out of your photography? You can get so excited about photography. You can get on rolls with photography. You can get the stoke happening a lot. I know, I've been there. But I've also had times where it's just faded away a little bit. And what we want to do is we want to keep that fire going so we can keep creating, keep doing the things we love. But we've got to be patient with ourselves. Today, I'm going to go long form. I'm going to go into an interview, a podcast style thing, which is not my norm, but we are going to go in depth with Mike Guest, a photographer that I respect, and he's a good friend of mine who lives in Scotland. He comes out to Australia every now and then, but we keep in contact by the internet, and this interview has been way overdue for you to see because he is a specialist in the personal projects. Personal projects can really up-level your photography to not just get paid work and get more work, but to, like I said before, light that fire. So Mike Guest, he is a photographer from Scotland, like I said, surf, water, lifestyle photographer. But once you start seeing his images, you'll see the true passion, the heart and the connection that he has with his subjects and his environments. And I just love his work, and it's so special. And I got so many nuggets out of this little podcast that we did, and I hope it can be the same for you. So really tune into it. Give yourself the space to watch the full podcast. Listen to it. You can listen to it in the car, but it does have some visual stuff. He does share his screen and get some of his personal projects up and out there. So if you can watch it on YouTube, that would be the best. So without further ado, let's introduce my mate, Mike Guest. G'day. How's it going, Guesty?
Good, man. Good. We're just rolling into autumn here in Scotland.
Nice. Best time of the year in most parts of the world. Is it the best time there?
Yeah, I think my two favorites are spring and autumn, and that shift from winter to spring and then autumn to winter. It's good waves, light gets really good, and that just shift in the temperature I really love.
Nice, yeah, change of seasons. We're into spring, which is our worst time for surf, so got lots of northerly slop ahead of us on the east coast of Australia. But today I am super excited to get into talking with you about personal projects for photography, something that's ignored, especially by professional photographers a lot. And I'm really excited to hear your insights, your experience, and where you've taken personal projects yourself with your photography. So excited for you to share more. So first of all, maybe the first question I can ask is why would you spend your time, or why would you bother with a personal project for photography?
Yeah, a good place to start, and I think probably a caveat to put in at the moment is that it's quite good timing this conversation for me. 2024 has been probably my worst year to date in photography terms. Going to be really honest. Lots been going on in life. It's quite hard out there at the moment. And the thing I should most be doing is the thing that we're going to talk about. And the thing I've least been doing is the thing we're about to talk about. So it's a really good kick in the ass. It's a really good reminder of all the things that I've done. I've learned, the conversations I've had, the mentorship that I've done. To just kind of, if anything, this is really a big thing for me to just be like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. And to go into that part of like, why would you do that? Why would you do personal projects? I think for me, it started off as this kind of blindly always holding my camera when I got into photography because I was so into it. For me, it was I always had my camera on me. I was always shooting, filling up hard drives, not really ever deleting anything. And a few friends are like, what the? Like, where does this go? I'm like, I don't know, on a hard drive. And over time, the musician friend, which I'll show you some stuff on, Colin, be like, oh, have you got anything from that trip? Have you got anything of this? And as his music career started building, we'd already had a certain element of stuff. And he's, been a musician for quite a while. And I would go up and surf, we'd hang out, we'd shoot. Maybe there would be a bit of work for the record label, but we'd just do other fun stuff on the side of it and build up this kind of body of work that I didn't know I was building. So for me, it was very subconscious to start with. And then it became very conscious where I was like, now it wasn't just because those things would turn into dollars down the line, and not very many, I must say. But it was this thing where you're like, this is the stuff I'm really passionate about. This is what I love. And to really show people what you love, I think, for me, it has to be incredibly personal. The pitches that I've done and a pitch deck I'll show you is that I actually looked through it and I was like, there's not one image that I was paid to shoot in that, but I was pitching for a paid job. And it was all images which relate to surf and my friends. So everything in there is a real personal story. So that if I got asked about that and you're sitting down with a creative director or an agent or a client, whoever it is, it's so quick for me to just tell a true story, an emotional story that connects me to that image. And then they can feel that connection through my storytelling.
Brilliant. Love it. That's so good. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, go on. Sorry, mate.
No, so just to to go into that part is that, I did some mentorship with a lady called Christina Force who lives in New Zealand. And it was very much a commercial photography boot camp, she calls it. And you go through everything. You learn what is your why in photography. And I've heard people say, what's your voice? And I never really understood that. And I kind of really found that saying really irritating, not going to lie. And then she was like, what's your why? I'm like, my why? Why do you do what you do? And before you even go into that, she starts you onto what's your why in life? What gets you up out of bed? What drives you? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? It was almost like a little counseling session. And then from that, look into work and look at those parallels and work out what could work together or not. It can be a danger to turn your passion into your profession. So there's a balance with all of this, but that experience of digging into what your why is kind of fascinating, and it changes over time. Mine is belong, that sense of belonging. So being a photographer, documenting these friendships and these travels that I do gives me a sense of belonging. It gives me a sense of understanding and grounding within my environment, within my friends group, within my country, within myself, to go a little bit out there, in society in a global sense, which, don't know quite what that is, but that sense, it gives me purpose to a degree at times. And that doesn't have to be shared online. I've got hard drives of stuff that haven't seen the light of day. They might never. They probably will. I'll maybe leave something in a will to someone and hopefully some money and make the poor bugger go through all my hard drives and come up with something. Or AI will be that clever that, it'll be like, it's it's the end of his time. And it'll just pop up a reel of Mike's life. But I'd hope it would be someone that would curate it.
Classic. Yes. That's quite on the cards.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, amazing. I really love how you've got to that and how you've now intentionally or purposefully started realizing why you're doing and why you did your personal photography subconsciously before, but now more intentionally. And when you do something more intentionally, well, then the results are going to be, compounding, 10 times. And I also like the fact that you said earlier that, you talking about this today is helping you as well as helping other people. And I found that myself with teaching photography over the last 4 years. It's like, when I'm teaching, I'm reinforcing, a lot of fundamentals and a lot of ideas and a lot of inspiration for my own photography. So it's, if you want to learn better, start teaching it. So that's a good observation from today's thing. And I know some of the pictures that are coming, and they're going to definitely inspire a lot of photographers that are watching this moving forward. So
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think a really good thing to touch in on actually is something that Christina drove home, uh, which is really good point, is that as photographers, we can go to the how. Do I do that? What camera, what lens, what location? Rewind. Why? Why do
Mm.
I want to do this? And really digging
So
into that. And that can be really hard because once you've been doing it for a while, you just kind of know what's going on. Oh, I'm going to shoot it on 85. I'm going to go do this, going to do that. I'm going to light it like this. I'm going to do it at dawn. And Christina would always catch us like on this group call. And she's like, why? Oh, yeah, right. Rewind. Like take the time to kind of think about it. Yes, have the camera with you if a moment appears, but like take that time to build relationships, to understand why you want to do something. And I think a great saying that I once heard, and I think it was like back in the late 70s, and Gurv der Stur, right? And that's this saying in Swedish or Norwegian, and I have completely butchered that. But what it means is dig where you stand. And I remember reading this in a book, and up in Scotland, we've got a group of islands called Shetland Islands. And there's a boat called the Dunter. And a friend of mine was a skipper on this boat, one of my best pals, Rory. And the guy had written a book. He's like, you got to read it. It's a great little read. And this guy basically explains, like, I've got this beautiful set of islands. I could have traveled all the way around all of these islands and done tours everywhere. But he picked this one rock, basically. It's kind of a glorified rock. It's huge, but it's got a ton of birds in it. And he's been going around that for 30 years. And every day he goes out, he sees something different. He experiences something different. He learns something different. The current changes. The waves are different. The birds are doing something different. The seals are out. The whales are coming, whatever that is. And so this thing of like, it can become kind of overwhelming when you're like personal project. You're like, right, I'm going to go to Mongolia and I'm going to tame a wild horse and I'm going to photograph the whole experience. Like, you broke. You've only got a week. Mongolia's a long way away. Like, what's actually at your feet? And I'm terrible for this. Like I'm like pretty ADD, dyslexic, scattery mind. Like I have to constantly remind myself, like, what is within my vicinity? Like, is there something I can tell a story about myself? Is there someone in my family? Is there a friend? Do they want me to tell that story? And just look around you. Is it the local barista? Is it the mechanic that you go to who's just got this amazing face and always got hilarious stories? Is it a surfer? Like, don't rule anything out. If you're into water photography and that's your jam, great. But it doesn't mean you can't do a personal project on the local grocer or your postie. Like even if it's just a portrait, like develop relationships, look close to you, and then, check with people, see if they're up for it. I think that
so
would be
good.
like, sorry, I kind of went off on one about that, but like, I think that's really important to remember. And I have to always remind myself to rein myself back in from getting too overexcited.
I love that. I love that you've given me, and I'm sure all the photographers listening to this, so many ideas in a couple of paragraphs just then. So powerful is the question, just that simple question of why. And like, I don't want anyone watching this to gloss over that simple question, to ask yourself why every morning. Like, why am I doing this? And you'll find I've started to do that in the last couple of years, and I'm so much more powerful and more effective with my life, not just with photography, but personal life and everything. Is just asking that simple question, why, and then going deeper as well. Just keep asking why, like your mentor did. It's so simple, but like it sits you on back, and you think, well, of course I know why. And then sometimes you realize that you've never actually asked yourself that question. So yeah, two really great things in that last passage is just that pure inspiration of like not needing to go somewhere exotic, but there are literally stories all around you at your local beach, in your local community. There's like, I go to the local markets on the weekends, and mate, the personalities that I meet there are abundant, and they all got a story to tell, and I'm fascinated by their stories. And you dig deeper into that, and then set up a personal project with someone that's doing something that's it might even not be something that you're passionate about, but if that person's got a lot of passion, you can bring your passion of photography to that and have legs with it. So yeah, I'm interested to see yeah, how you've gone about it in the past. Maybe you can show some examples of what you've done and what your intention was to start with, or whether yeah, the order of things, I suppose. Have you set up is some of your personal projects that have come to fruition, were they, like you said earlier, you subconsciously did it and now it pulled itself towards a personal project? Or have you taken a personal project where from the start you were intentional about it and said, this is the aim of what I'm trying to achieve here? And yeah, if so, how was that process? Well, you can tell me either way.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think most of my stuff has been really unconscious
Mm.
in the start of just this sort of blind taking of photos, documenting. I spent a fair bit of time touring with some sort of Scottish folk musicians. I had a partner who was a piano player and played for a great friend called Rachel. And Rachel's someone that I kind of documented while I would drive them and photograph them. And, you know, I did an album cover for the first time. But there's all this stuff that still we haven't done much with, and we probably will at some point. Again, the same, most of my things are like that. Like sometimes I wish I was a way more organized individual that had a really tidy, clean Dropbox and notes on all the things that I've done and hard drives labeled properly. I'm not. If you are, amazing. Like, do it. Be as organized and fastidious with your backups and all that as you can, because it's really frustrating holding like 40 hard drives and just constantly plugging them in and searching for like one number, which is actually repeated because you've gone around so many revolutions. Um, so like I am not the most organized. I've learned how I should do it. I'm getting slightly better. But a lot of those things is friendships. I think a good person to talk about, someone that we have a mutual kinship with, is James Parry, longboarder from Sen in England. Fantastic human, amazing surfer, a true great friend. Met him in a car park on a shoot for Wavelength magazine and has become a lifelong friend. He now lives over with you on the other side of the planet. I've visited in the last couple of years when I've gone over to New Zealand to see my family, and, you know, dipping in, doing stuff with James. Not all of that's seen the light of day. Maybe that'll come down the line. So I think there's the long game on projects like these, but then there's really short little wins that you can have, which are, yeah, like a lot closer to home. And I definitely need to get a bit better at these shorter ones. I love these long drawn out things, but I think that short stuff, those little peppery ones, those easy ones, Christina was always going on about this, is that they're great, those long term ones, these sort of real lifers, but get some smaller stuff in there. And that's what I want to work on this year, is just go, boom, I'm going to go do this. I've got to know this person. It's taken a year, but I'm just going to go smash out a couple portraits at the right time and do a little bit, and then put it out.
That's a good tip. Yeah, just gets your momentum going then. If you get a few things over the line, you get a bit more encouragement. So I like that theory too, for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that, for me that worked the best, or say worked the best again, was an unconscious thing that in the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, when everything shut down, I was back in Scotland, came back home, no work, everything cancelled. And a fellow water photographer called Nick Pumphrey, we were on the phone together going, oh, love to go and swim, love to take photos. And he said, oh, I'm going to paddle out every day. And so I did this project called Dawn Days, which was kind of how we connected up a little bit as well. And that's what we ended up calling it. And it went from being just feels like the world's ending. I'm going to go out in the water and shoot photos. I can walk down there, it's safe, put some photos up, do some writing. And this became this like long term kind of personal project for a month. And I went out every morning from, like 3:30 in the morning, wake up, get out, 4:30 in the water, blue hour, shoot, edit, put it up, write something, done, move on. Like, it was a really good process in shoot it, write about it, put it to bed, because we can overthink things. And so it was a great process to learn to do that. Um, and the thing that I've not repeated, which I really want to do, is that element of almost locking myself away or taking myself away somewhere, for a week. It doesn't have to be a month or 3 days. I shoot every dawn for 3 days again, or whatever that thing is kind of like dedicating this time and taking myself out of my normal world, maybe, so I haven't got the distractions of my local beach or whatever, and just kind of take yourself on your own little retreat, take the camera, take the laptop, but you're just there to back up, not like work on it. So you could do it two ways. You could just go and shoot, or you could make yourself shoot, write, finish something, pick 3 images, 5 images. That's it. So at the end of the week, you've got this body of work. And then I think the other thing that's been pivotal for me about communities online, like yours, like the Christina Force one, the Dawn Days community that kind of built up, is finding people that you can share work with and start to learn to trust other photographers, start to learn to trust friends, and start to show your work and start to get feedback, start to get hard feedback, like learn to fail. Like, a lot of people on Instagram, you see it with loads of like Chase Jarvis, all this stuff, like fail as much as you can. He's got a point. Like, just get out there, get doing it, and show your work to people and discuss what it does for them, because your perception of an image and a feeling of an image is completely different to someone else. And there's probably something to be learned from that. And that's something for me that's huge. Like, that's why I started the Aquatech water housing group on Facebook. In a way, was just like create a community of people where I had all these questions. It's like, and it's a bit of a dark art. They're a great company. All the water housing companies are, but the detailed information of sort of specifics is really complicated. And so having these communities for that, but also this kind of artistic back and forward and conversation about what you're doing, why you're doing it, can be really, really good. Like this art of conversation is just like we were saying earlier, like I learned so much from talking to you. Like all the conversations we've had, I've had loads of like, oh, that's why I do that. Oh, that's how Tom does that. Like whether it's philosophical or technical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. It's like something that was missing for the first at least decade, maybe more, of my photography career. Like my wife's a photographer, so I bounced ideas off her all the time, but that was about it. I knew a few photographers, of course, but it wasn't a regular thing. But in the last 5 years, it's just been amazing. Like, with the photography group that I've created through my education, and there's so many like high class photographers in that group, and people learning as well. And to tell you the truth, I'm getting a lot of inspiration off people that have literally bought a water housing in the last 3 months, because they are fizzing and they've got a different look on it, and they've got an excitement. So even though they've only started 3 or 4 months ago, some of my biggest inspirations coming from those guys as well. So yeah, tapping back into that. The beginner's mindset, or the excitement of starting again. And I think that's what with the personal projects, I think that's another form of like a photographer that's been doing it for a long time, like both you and I have been, is to ignite that newness. Like Kelly Slater quotes it, he's still trying to chase the first wave he surfed as a grommet. Like, the first wave he stood up on the green wall that he got, he's just spent the rest of his life chasing that feeling. There was no better wave almost. He said, I remember him saying in an interview, and it's to keep reigniting that, which obviously he has. As us as photographers, I think the personal project is a clear way to be able to do that. That's why I think this conversation is going to be important for a lot of photographers. Probably not as much for the ones that are beginning, because when you begin, it's all personal projects, isn't it? It's probably more for the photographers down the road. But even the ones that have started, I remember when I started, it's like I was reading photography books, and there was no YouTubes and there was no internet and all that sort of thing. But I was reading photography books, and I thought that I had to go and shoot, these things. Like I thought I had to go and shoot wildlife and waterfalls and all these things that you see in photography magazines. I didn't actually, which was all good, and I don't regret any of it. But like, you do have to ask yourself why am I doing it? But at the start, it is good to just be frothing on photography as a whole. So yeah, maybe you could show us. I don't know what you want to show us first, but
Yeah,
maybe bring up one of your projects that it's either come to fruition or one that you're working on or whatever you want, man. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
nice. Was an article for the Surfer's Journal, which, someone reached out to try and find me who'd been suggested to speak to me, a new Colin. And this is a great friend of mine. And I'd just been doing a bit of touring with him, a little bit of photography with him, met him through an ex-partner and Rachel, the lady I talked about, the musician. And this is kind of what culminated in I guess like 6 or 7 years of shooting as a friend. So it was an unconscious thing. And then they're like, "What have you got on Colin?" I was like, quite a lot. And I just sent them this pretty messy Dropbox. I think I put it into 4 different folders, like surf, lifestyle, music, other, and could have just threw them a ton of images and instantly got a message back, literally kind of within 30 minutes going, "Okay, yeah, great. I think we can do something." And so, you know, some of these are just moments from, where he works. There's us in the O2 in London before a sound check, before a gig, up there in a friend Lumpy's ceiling, and he's got a peat-fired stove that kind of backfired that day. And so we thought this was going to be the album cover. That's what we wanted to use, and Colin wanted to use. Didn't happen in the end. Always got to get a cute puppy in there. And this is just this kind of what his life is music, surfing, feeding sheep, crofting as we call it in Scotland. Bit of surfing, bit of shed life, and a little bit of landscape, friends and surfboards, him and the dog, just gutting fish, just a mixture of what's going on to kind of give a snapshot of someone's life. And you know that was great. Like, that was a real honor to get in that magazine. It was cool that it was a really good friend, and it was kind of wild going on. And it was a real like aha of like, this is why you just keep the camera clicking and you keep the files, because at some point someone might ask, and if they don't, maybe down the line you'll think, I want to, yeah, I want to do something myself. And we can talk about platforms and different ways of sharing work. Maybe at some point, that's something that's in my head at the moment, of how to kind of share in a more genuine way, or a longer form way, or something that feels a bit more expansive than the likes of Instagram and Facebook, and all of that. Like, they are what they are. I don't know. We don't need to go into the Instagram and Facebook thing, but I feel like there's other ways that we can do that. Yeah. So that was one project.
Yeah, I love it. Just love how much variation there's in there, and I love the fact that the editor of Surfer's Journal, even though it's a surfing magazine, they didn't have to go too heavy on surf action, because while surf action is great, like, I want to, even when I was younger, but certainly as I've got older, I want to dig into the backstory of the life, of the surfer, even if it's the best surfer in the world. Yeah, I do want a couple of hero shots of them surfing or in the barrel and that sort of thing. But yeah, I want to know more about what they do outside of their surfing life, because you can't surf all day long. And a person's so much more interesting if surfing isn't their only thing. I think an interesting person has to go beyond surfing, and that's what connects. Like a story, if you read the words to this, you dig in even deeper, which obviously are a vital part of a magazine article to capture
yeah.
that. And these images then, create even more power once you read the words. So yeah, if you get a chance to have a look at this Surfer's Journal, I'd recommend reading the article as well, so that the pictures come to life.
Don't be afraid to write yourself. I think, like, you know,
Mm.
I'm dyslexic, and I had a narrative that I couldn't write, but actually, like, blow my own trumpet, when I put my mind to it, I'm actually quite good, and let it flow. Do
Mm.
the thing, write it, put it in a text document, leave it in the folder, come back to it. Get it down there.
Definitely. Yeah, that's how I, in the early days of the magazines. So before I was full-time professional in 2004, my income was from surfing magazines, my part-time income, because I had a job as well before 2004. But I was getting published in magazines a little bit, but the editors said, I love your photos, but there's got to be words with them. So I just started writing words, and I got published a whole lot more. And it was actually fun. Like I did write, like, all of a sudden I was a writer, and I was getting paid double too. Instead of just getting paid for the pictures, I was getting paid per word. So it worked out really good, and it ensured that I got the pictures up there, because that was really what I wanted to see, my pictures in magazines. And but the writing was fun. I surprised myself even this day. It's like I don't think that I like writing, but then once I start writing, I can't stop, and I just have great afternoons where I'm just writing content for, or these days it's mostly tutorials and tips and tricks for photographers to get better, or theories around photography. But yeah, the writing process is fun, and probably something that really, if it's a personal project, is going to be exciting for the photographer to write about. So that's another question I've got for you, that maybe that can come in now, is when you start a personal project, it's obviously personal, but do you ever have a bit of a thought down the road that this personal project could be, say, a good book in the future, and not be attached to if it is a good book, if it does become a book or not, but just, having that foresight to think, wow, I could see this going into a book one day. And then while you do the personal project, start, journaling from each shoot or each interaction with that person, if it's a person, or that place, if it's a place. So yeah, my question there is, do you think about an outcome, like you alluded to it before, how to show your pictures? Do you think about an outcome with your personal projects, like, oh yeah, this would make a good video? It could be a clip, or it could be a book, or it could be, well, what else could it be?
Yeah, just a quick rewind on the writing thing as well. It's like, if you're like me and you're dyslexic and you struggle, there's so much good technology like voice notes, the auto AI dictation stuff you can use at the moment is fantastic. So if you are better talking, talk it out, dictate it down. You might know someone, again, reach out to your community of friends or whatever. You might know someone that's a bit of an editor if you're struggling with those words, and they might be able to help you. So just that thing, if someone's going, oh, but writing, there's so many ways to do it. And how we express ourselves in the handwritten word, the typed word, the auto-dictated word, and the spoken word are actually very different. And so it can be really fun to play with all those different mediums. I did a bunch of coaching with like in the government in the UK will give you money for the Access to Work grant, because dyslexia is bracketed under disability, which I disagree. But the useful thing of that is you can access this funding, and you get a dyslexic workplace strategy coach. I think they give them that really dry name, but awesome humans just show you how to use all of that stuff. So a little bit of a sideline on that.
Hmm.
But regarding the kind of like journaling with stuff, like my journaling is in Notes and in Grammarly. I used to use Grammarly a lot because it was really great for spell checking whilst I was doing stuff. But actually, it became a bit distracting, and actually it stemmed the flow. And so what I found better was auto dictating or typing or voice dictate. And yeah, I don't think I really, whenever something clicks and I'm like, oh, awesome, the first thing is just like, I want to document that. I don't know why. And I don't think, honestly, that it clicks into my head of this could make a great book or this could make a great this. It's just like, oh yes, love this person, love this thing, document it. Um, I think there's potentially a danger for me if I was to think that way. It might skew my perspective potentially. I don't know. I've not really thought about it that much. But also, the thing I'm trying to think these days more is just in threes and fives. Like covering enough off so that you've got enough of a story. Like kind of like in film and video work when you're like tight mid wide, so you've got the shots to cut together um, for a piece of film is very different from the single image. But actually, in my head, for me, single image is great, but I don't really chase them. I need to remember, oh, like get some detail of the surfboard or the crack in the fin or the scar on the face or him eating his fish or gutting his fish or on the back of the tractor. Like covering off all these random things, which you kind of think, why am I taking a photo of that? You know, like, and if you're questioning yourself why, you're like, I'm like, cool, probably good idea. Like, might need it, might not, you know? And again, that thing with Colin was like, I look back at that and I go, damn it, we were doing so much video then for him because of the record label. I was like, duh, I missed so many photos, you know, like in a way, because I was busy filming. Um, and that is why I now have a main shooting body, and then I've always got like a Fuji X-T4 with a little 35mm equivalent of a 50 there. That is in photo mode all the time. It doesn't go into video mode if those video projects are happening. But making sure that I've always got that ability, because sometimes if you're rigged up with the camera and I put a monitor on and all that, like taking photos with a video rig on an R5, it's like it's clunky. But you've got that little Fuji or whatever it is, just for those little moments. Like if I look back and I don't regret anything, as it were, but I'd be like, oh, take a few more shots, a little bit more behind the scenes, you know, get a little bit closer. Like Christina said that to me, actually, Christina Force, the mentor, and she was like, get closer. I love this close stuff of yours. Don't worry about going wide, you know, like get in there. I was like, oh, okay. And that's what she picked out. And I'll show you a set of images that I did with her in 2019. I gave her 300 images, and it's a great process. And she goes through and gives you your superheroes, your heroes, and you're like, they're all good, and your get rid of it folder. Um, and that's kind of fascinating to give that to someone who's got a real commercial mind or a real commercial mindset. But I think is a process that I'd love to do more with people. Like, don't know, just as I evolve now, I should probably do that again with her. But also maybe with friends or groups. You know, it's such a great way to do it. And then you get this kind of distillation, and she's like, "This is me for you, with what you've given me and what I know about you."
Definitely. That's what I'm actually doing that. So I've got about 10 one-on-one photographers that I'm mentoring over a 6-month period at the moment. And
Oh,
for most
nice.
of them, I've set up that similar thing where it's like they'll have genres, so whatever they're shooting, say it's surf lifestyle, surf action, and portraits, say, and I'll get them to like just stick a whole lot of photos in each of those genres, and then we'll make an A, B, and C folder. And the whole idea is to sort of, yeah, like have a look at where they're at in each of those genres, so they can like get a portfolio of images to make a website that's super strong. And the idea is to have your A grades, but then look at them and then see if you can replace an A grade and take it down to the B grade. Now, the B grade, not necessarily one you won't use for something, but it's you just it's there. But the whole idea is to replace A grade ones and get them down to the B grade one, so then your portfolio is getting stronger. But it's good to lay it out
Nice.
and using programs like Pixie and there's another one that eludes me at the moment, which is really easy to share between me and the photographer and someone else. Even they could share them on the private Facebook group that we've got going on, and they can get feedback from someone else, because that's only my feedback and my tastes. So it is good to um, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be what you love and what you like and what's special to you. But it is good to get different perspectives on that, and yeah, it's valuable that with someone that's got a bit of an eye for it and a bit of experience in the field. So, like with your process of, what'd you say, 300 pictures down to distilling them down to what?
To, yeah, I was just seeing it's. I could show you them if you want.
Yeah, get them out.
Heroes. How many did she give me? Down to 17 photos.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Big call.
Yeah, I will load that up. Oh,
That's all
yeah,
right.
I think it's. I just think it's so important. I personally don't think that enough photographers are probably sharing our work with each other, sharing rates, sharing all that kind of stuff. It's really hard. It can seem really confronting, and this is a wider thought. And this is just all of this is just my opinion. I am no expert. I am not like some huge commercial photographer. I just survive doing what I love, and mix it up with all sorts of things. But I do think we need to share more. I do think we need to talk more and keep an eye on those things, because especially in a world where clients and brands are and agencies are driving people to the bone on prices, like we've all got to kind of like not start a union. I'm not talking about that, but like
Mm.
keep it on the level so we don't all just get pushed further and further down, because we've got to all make a living, but also enjoy what we're doing and not feel like, yeah, we're being hard done by. But that's again a different conversation. But I think it's important, like, yeah,
It is, and it's underutilized. And yeah, a united front. Like a lot of people will just say, "Well, I didn't know." Like they literally don't know what their images are worth. And I'm going to do more stuff on that. There's even a guy, a Western Australian photographer who's been in the game for a long time, that said he will come on and share his rate sheets and his ideas behind that. So that could be a
cool.
good podcast
Yeah.
if we can get it happening down the track. But yeah, have you got those photos?
Yeah, let's go into that. So let's do a little screen share again. Yes, so this was 17 images that she picked out. This was 2019, and I just had all the time. So I went through these photos, and then, like, this is a random photo. I was chasing the Northern Lights. Didn't really happen that night, but I had a couple extra spare lights, and I went and lit up this dam, those two blocks. Random thing. It was the middle of winter, like absolutely freezing, but didn't have anything else to do. This was when I started out, when I was just totally obsessed doing kind of weird, daft things like this, long exposures. One of my favorite water shots with a long lens for the kind of a little bit of technical nerdery on a 200 mm. And I
That's
love
epic.
oyster catchers. You just see them all around the world.
They are.
Beautiful little bothy in a very remote island in Scotland, and just some of this stuff just spoke to her. This is just things I take photos of when I'm coming back from a surf, to be honest. Little nug of a wave, lovely little longboard number there, midwinter.
Ah,
And then this is some of the stuff from dawn days. So it's just these morning textures when that light first hits the water is absolutely one of my favorite times to be in the water, whether it's cliched or not to go in at sunset and sunrise. The light's amazing, and what it does in the water, I just find awesome, whether I've got a camera or not in my hand, just being at that seal's eye view, of which you know well. Some more long exposure stuff, little nug of a wave. Actually, that's miniature. You could probably fit a chicken in that, but it looks bigger. It was funny with this, like, on my friend's prawn boat. Like, so here's another personal project actually that I shot a lot with was a friend of mine is a prawn and lobster fisherman, small boat off the west coast. And I just used to go and hang out with them when I was going surfing. And when the waves were bad, I'd go down and see them, go out fishing with them, and just hang out. I shot for a week solid. And then we had this one epic day. And I had a hard drive full of this beautiful footage, started making an edit, and randomly got a call from BBC Alba, which is the like Gaelic traditional language channel, from a friend of a friend saying, "Oh, we're thinking of doing this free diving thing. Would you be up for it? Like a scallop picking, come do the photo and the video." I was like, "Yeah, no worries. What camera do you use on 1DX? Oh, I don't know if that'll be good enough." So I sent them a rushes of this day.
mm.
And they're like, "Oh, can we just buy the hard drive?" And I've never had that before. And I was like, "Yeah, you can, but it's going to cost you." And I ended up with a serious payday from just hanging out with my pals. So I'd forgotten about that. That is one of those times where you're like, "Oh, cha-ching," but it wasn't the focus.
But it's pure, that pure. It's picked up on like that pure intent. Like when I asked, like even to the point where, do you have an end goal for your personal project? And you sort of said you don't. I think it's pretty cool because it makes it even more pure, because like it is going to change the way that you shoot. And if you're just taking pictures from the heart with no intention, like even these days, it's like, it's hard not to think, how's that going to crop on Instagram and stuff like that while you're shooting it? It's just ridiculous, really.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so restrictive that like it kind of does my head in, and I've like really struggled at times with clients on that, like us all trying to understand, God, how do we shoot this? Do we shoot it for square? Are we shooting
Mm,
like two runs of this? Should we put two cameras side by side for video? And then we've both
mm,
got it, so we don't have to crop. because then we try and crop and it'll look like crap. You know, like
Mm.
it's really frustrating. And I think it's probably really hard not to get into that mindset. I think I just don't now. I'm just like, I don't care,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Like, let's compose a good image and then see it from
Yeah.
there. And I still kind of hack the Instagram grid by putting that white border because I don't want it in a square. Like,
Yeah.
if I want it in a square, I'd shoot medium format film. Like, I don't want that. Yeah, Instagram kind of
Sure.
frustrates the living hell out of me, even though it's a place of
Well,
inspiration. But saying that, I do push myself to shoot portrait way more because I have
yeah.
actually been asked by a number of clients, or especially with editorial, like a thing that I really like, and it blew my mind, and it's so damn simple. But it was Christina, and she just put 3 images together, and there was like a portrait, 2 landscapes in a
Mm.
three, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And actually, 3 of those images, one was this one, right, of Jen, and then the other one was like this sat beside, and there was another one, but the tones are the same, like, so you look at those browns, then look at those
Yeah. Definitely.
goldens, they are
Mm.
the same image, but they're not. They're actually taken. That's the top of Ben Nevis. That's an island in the middle of nowhere in Scotland. um yeah, so like how things fit together as well. Like, so I guess this is a little rewind again. If you know any graphic designers and you really like their work, or illustrators, like, those brains are epic. Like, some of my
Mm.
favorite photographers are graphic designers as well, because they have this even deeper concept, this wider zoom out of like of um of context. Where is it going to sit? There's a great guy, Chris McLean, from northeast of England, who's awesome graphic designer, amazing photographer, great filmmaker. Chris's work is just really speaks to me. And I think part of that is not just because of his eye, but it's just the way he composes images and how he puts things together. So, yeah, and so to go back into these photos, this is just more of this stuff that really um, spoke to Christina. This shot always irritated me because her foot's missing.
Mm.
And I was like, ah. And she's like, who cares? Love it. And it literally was, I was just going up for a hike up Ben Nevis, biggest mountain in Scotland, 1,000 meters, a little bit of snow there. Yeah. And then just into portraiture. I don't do a huge amount of it, but I absolutely love it, and I would love to do more of it. And a lot of people do tell me you should do more portraits.
I agree. You're such a personable fella, so I think yeah, it just makes sense.
There's our boy James Parry in his old Land Rover that he used to live in. That's how I first met him, actually.
Uh,
And then down to that pairing of those images, like
mm.
those colors going together. So like playing around with stuff. And I find a really useful thing is this thing called Miro. And you can use anything ultimately. Like, it's just putting a bunch of images on a table. Imagine you've printed them out and then putting them beside each other and starting to play with stuff and collect it all together and make sets of 3 and 5 and 10 or whatever. Maybe for me, it's 3s and 5s. And just kind of
Mm.
playing around with those images, just seeing how they sit together. Yeah. So that was like a look at what she picked
Yeah,
out of my
she's
work. But like, yeah, I thought I'd share this a little bit as well, as like, what is the other stuff that goes on? Like, this for me kind of typifies what life is. I had to do a presentation recently, and I was just like, thought I'd just ram in like as many random photos as I could. But
uh,
it was really fun to put that collage and just go, oh yeah, this is what I love. Living in a van, surfing, waves, Scotch eggs, and just, yeah, that kind of bit. And it's a reminder to me now, like, it's a little bit of a slide that I keep to just remind myself when I go a little bit off direction, like I have at the moment in this last 12 weeks. It just is this thing of like, yeah, like remembering what I do and why I do it. And I totally lost track of that recently. And I've only been doing this, I don't know, 12, 14 years or something. I feel like there's a long way to go in it. Like, if you can have the patience and the persistence, you just got to kind of, it's a long haul, it's a long game, but we live in a very fast world. It sounds all a bit cliche, but we live in a very fast paced world where everyone's rushing to do everything. And I'm
mm.
really actively trying to slow down. I'm not saying I've got anywhere near it, because I'll still hit warp speed again at some point, but like, okay, time to slow. And and it is good to do that. But now I kind of like feel the energy building again, and that's cool because I don't want to lose the love for photography. I think I almost did last year. Again, like I've had it a few times, and I kind of was like, oh, I'm just going to jack this in, and I'm done. And it's like, well, no, I'm never done taking photos. And if I'm making money from it at the moment, cool. You know, if I'm not, then okay, like what else am I doing? I'm going to go and model next week because a friend asked me. I thought I was being asked to do the shoot, and I sent them a pitch. They're like, "Man, we want your face." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll do that for money." And also like just keeping a bit of variety for me works. For some people, one solo thing, great. For me, with my brain, I need variety. I need a bit of spice going on.
And you've got that patience. You've got that, like, all over the place, and you want to do all these things, but you've also got the patience with your long-term projects. So yeah, just being okay to sit on things for a few years and build on them. Whereas a lot of people, they literally want to get it out the second they shoot it, or they forget about images that they've been building because they're like, a few months old or a few years old. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have patience and then work on a long term project. You've definitely inspired me and got me thinking about something that I could get started on for sure with my personal projects. Yeah, super excited. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been watching this and thinking in their head what they can do and what they can bring, especially with some of your suggestions before. Just to touch on a few more things, like haven't really spoken about the personal projects to paid work as much, but we have a little bit, but how that looks, and you spoke a little bit about how it worked for you, but I would imagine that going that way about it, you would get a lot better projects because what's on your website is not what you think people want. Or you're not showing jobs that you sort of shot, but you didn't have your heart in it. You're more showing your stuff that you've got heart in, and then the right brands or the right projects will find you. Has that been the case for you, or do you think that's the way forward?
Big admission coming here, Tom. My website is 5 rolling images that
Okay.
says coming soon. It is the biggest thing on my list to get done that has been an absolute nightmare for me. And I really need to sort it out because it burns a hole in my soul on a daily basis. But what I could show you is a pitch that I did for a job that had a graphic designer friend of mine help me do, which will show a bunch of personal work in a context to pitch to a client. So we could have a look at that if that's and a little bit talk
Super.
around that if you want.
Yeah, that'd be unreal. Yeah, that's what I want to get into a lot more with the students within my course is that process of pitching, because a lot of people haven't even heard about what a pitch deck is or anything like that. So yeah, if you've got one there or you've got
Yeah,
some insights
I
on
will
that, I think
too.
it'd be super valuable.
So I'll just share this one with you. So this was to pitch for an ocean seaside testimony project. And so what I did was built something with my friend Derek, amazing graphic designer that I've worked with. It's become a friend, really good friend of mine who just totally gets who I am, which is super helpful. When someone gets you, you can just give them a raft of images and some words. And him and the agency, we did a barter actually. It's a great way to explain how to get some stuff done because it's important to not just ask people for their time. Like
Mm,
a lot of the time, it's like, what can I do for you? This is what I need from you. What can you do for me? Or like, what can I
mm.
do for you? It's like, what's the barter? So I did a bunch of portraits of their staff at this agency, and he helped me with this document, and then a whole kind of rebrand of Mike Guest, which I still haven't run out yet. But it was a great experience. And then it was like, okay, where are we at? What do you need? Oh, could you come do a little bit of video work? And then I think we're even. Great. And so they helped me put this pitch together, which, is just gently showing a bit of clients worked with. That's who I am, the hairy guy with
Awesome.
the water camera, then giving a bit of my idea and my vision for what they're wanting to do. And remember, like, follow the brief, but also follow your heart. Like, if you believe something their brief is a bit off, like, play them at their game, but then offer them nuggets. Show them that you can do the job, but show them that you're maybe going to go above and beyond because you've seen something else. And so just to note that all of these photos are from personal projects or personal projects, they're pals. There's my pal Ruri, prawn fishing on the West Coast. And then we moved down, my pal Craig that I surf with, lobster fisherman, deckhand. We're going out with them in the morning, still do that, haven't been for a while. Go down at 4 a.m., load the boat with them, shoot for an hour, then the light's gone, and then just hang out and drink coffee and sit in the boat.
Nice.
Again, obviously, a lot of this was around large scale fishing that's going on. So this was about the small scale stuff. My pal Josh and Dave up on the West Coast in Scotland, and then pulling into this kind of thing about portraiture and people in these split personalities or split lives. This is Christian, lovely South American fella, whiskey distiller in Scotland now, and that's him body surfing. Like, one of the first people I'd ever seen body surf this wave, and became a great friend. I don't see him enough, but I just love going body surfing this guy. He's such a frother.
Epic.
And then moving in here again, showing some more imagery. Friendly Faces, one of my best pals, the guy that got me into water photography. Amazing polymath of a human photographer, filmmaker, painter. Like, you could give that guy a knife and a loincloth in Indonesia or any country, and he'll bring you back a 3-course meal. Like, that's a story I want to tell at some point. On to my friend Bob. Bob did run a traditional water mill in the north of Scotland, and so everything you see behind him is powered by the water and the wooden cogs and leather. A Kiwi that found himself in Scotland, but just a little moment, I was just going and testing a new flash out and a new flash box, and just popped in to see him, and that took me 8 years to get Bob to let me take a portrait, really. By the time I walked him in. And my pal Helen here, amazing painter, partner to a great friend of mine, and both of them great friends that I hang out with. She needed some shots actually for her website. And I was like, oh, I want to test out this new 85. Like, I'll take some stuff for you. Pushing into Dan, amazing boat builder. You don't actually see that he's working on a 55-foot herring boat, but Derek just loved these images and felt like it told a story. Here's a bunch of characters from when I was working in lockdowns. A bunch of friends of mine that are carpenters. When the pandemic hit, I started driving forklifts and telehandlers for the construction department on these large Amazon Prime kind of dramas. And I had this idea in my head of a personal project where I got them to sit on this seat that most of them went out for a rollie and had out there. And I gave them a Sharpie and a piece of wood that was 333 mil long. I can't remember the significance, and none of us can why, but one of them told me to do that. And this was just this moment. We did 9 months together. They know I'm a photographer, but I just wasn't shooting at the time. And then on the second last day, I was like, guys, girls, please, can I take photos? And they were like, damn it, can't say no to you. And I've still not done anything with that, but it was documenting a time. It was documenting this family that I had. And those images to me are really special because I see my friendships, I see my relationships with all of them in each of those images. And whether someone else does or doesn't, I don't know, doesn't really matter to me. And then I went into talking about cinematography and the moving image stuff that I've done. So showing, some TV work that's been on idents, corporate documentaries, and then into Dawn Days, and then another personal project, which was a video project, which was born from this project because I shot way too much underwater and water footage, drove the editor slightly mental, but he came back saying, oh man, I've been flipping images, I've been doing this, like, it's so cool. And I said, oh, well, do you want to do something together? Should we make a film for the London Surf Film Festival? And we made a little short. I commissioned my ex-partner at the time and a friend, Dave, to make music. And we created a 3.5-minute abstract water piece, which had nothing to do with surf. Was actually shot in the back of an environmental corporate documentary about wave power. But those guys, when I went and saw them and said, hey, this is what it's for, can you let me use it? Because ultimately, they're ownership-wise, they kind of owned everything. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. We're into that. I wasn't making any money out of it. And then pushing into the end of the document, what happened here was it gave a little breakdown, and then they could actually click through, and there was an online Google Docs spreadsheet of the budget breakdown of what I was going to do with the budget, which was kind of done. I brought a producer in for this to help me kind of with numbers, because I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And then so yeah, this kind of just taking you through quite a long-winded one,
Mm.
and then just a little bit of testimonial work, and then some shots of me and Nick freediving in Scotland, just to kind of end it off with a little thank you and a way for them to be able to listen to some of the podcasts I've done, watch some videos. So a little bit different, maybe, than some traditional pitches. Maybe not. I don't really know. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a view for you.
Yeah, it's a really good example, and just leaving it up there, it just shows the power of good graphic design too, because it just brings your images to life. Like, you just makes them a little bit more special. If someone's doing that professionally, or they know what they're doing with graphic design, or they get a graphic designer, it's amazing the way that can lift your photos. I remember always seeing, I sometimes sent off pictures to magazines and I thought they were okay, but then when I saw them laid out, and if they had the text laid out right, and it's like all of a sudden I love that image like 30% more. And sometimes it was vice versa too. If like it was like, I don't know, cropped in a shitty way or something like that, it really annoyed me. But most of the time, I was really surprised with how much better my photo looked when it was laid out in a magazine with text. And sometimes it's the way they cropped it, or the way they laid it out with the other images. And like, this is a really good example of, like, you don't necessarily have to pay a graphic designer to do each of your pitch decks, but definitely be mindful of the way you lay it out, and maybe look at a few examples and start taking notice of graphic design to make your pitches look a little stronger.
Yeah, just even getting a template, like to start with a template like that, I can now go in and use that because Derek let me be able to do that. And I think, like you say, like, it's this classic thing of just like someone else looking at your work. Be okay with that. Find that person
Yeah.
you trust and tell them how you want feedback. Like, if you are sensitive about stuff, tell them I need a feedback sandwich, I need a little bit of
Yep.
sunshine blowing up my arse, then give me the reality and the meat in the middle, and then blow a little bit more sunshine, please. Like, you can dictate how people feed back to you. And same with clients. Like, the clients that I've got to know, like, and it doesn't always work this way, but some of those long-term ones, it's like, well, you know what? That kind of feedback's not working for me. Like, can we have a meeting and go over this year's images if you've got time for an hour? Can you send me what you've actually used? Like, I shoot stuff for whiskey things, and I didn't really know what they were doing with it. And they can do whatever they want, and they've paid. But I was just like, what's actually being used? Like, I might think that I'm shooting all this stuff that's being used, but do I need to concentrate a bit harder on a certain area? Arguably, maybe you're better not knowing, but it's always helped me to have a bit more of an inkling. Yeah. And like you say, you don't need to have a graphic designer to do this, but like, it's an awesome process. Like, if you can find a way to barter with someone, or yeah, and just play yourself. Like, you'd be amazed actually how much you can do yourself. Like, look at this image. You've got the two guys. You've got Dave down the bottom and Josh nicely in line. There's kind of a nice kind of eye draw to those yellow bibs.
Yes.
Here with Craig, again, there's just a bit of symmetry going on. There's chilling out. You're drawn into that portrait, but then you're going off into that action, being like, oh, what's he up to? And those three
Yes.
sit really well. Whereas Ruri on his own, great. That single image really works. And when Derek sent me this, I was like, oh, whoa, I'm a photographer. I didn't have a huge amount of confidence at the time. I can often have a really low self-esteem around photography because I'm in this bubble in my own head, listening to my mind telling me stories. And like, I'm not reaching out to people for them to blow sunshine. It's just like people to like help you understand what you do. Like, I think it's huge for me, and it's something I've not done again recently, but I've been reaching out again to friends and photographers and other filmmakers, coming up with ideas, pitching ideas, or just showing them stuff, going, what do you reckon? I shot an elopement wedding. I don't really do weddings, but Derek, the graphic designer, asked me to shoot his elopement. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, nah, you know us. He's like, I'm going to source all the locations. He nailed it. And it was a great time. But what I did is I got a friend of mine, Joe, runs a company called 20 Photos, and her business is taking people's iPhone photos or other camera photos or trips, pressing it down to like 40, and then helping them compress it to 20. And then she prints this beautiful little box, these beautiful archival prints, and you've got this adventure. And so I just said to Joe, she'd done a lot of wedding photography. I was like, give you a bunch of hours of my time if you go through and like have a look at those selects I've made and see if you'd choose anything different, or let her do her choice. And it was amazing because she came back with this awesome selection and some stuff that I hadn't thought about putting in that really worked well together. And, I was a bit nervous because I don't do weddings, but it was like 4 of us in the middle of nowhere in Scotland. It was beautiful. I was like, this is going to be all right. But getting that help afterwards to just, to alleviate that pain point for me, that bit where like you could send people thousands of photos. I've heard that's what people do. And I just thought, God, that'd be horrible. Like, imagine that, just getting like thousands of photos from your wedding. So I sent them 23 or 25 tops, my faves, which are even like selfies of me holding a bottle of champagne because I was holding their champagne while they were taking photos. Daft stuff. And then I gave them like, Joe helped me give them 30 to 40, getting ready, the wedding itself. We went and swam in the morning and did a water shoot, and then just a bunch of stuff where we went and drove the car and just went to some rad spots in Scotland, and then gave them this fine selection so they didn't have to sit there and go, oh my God. And then I've given them my wide selection in JPEGs and said, hey, if at some point you flick through it and go, damn, I want that, give me a shout and I'll send it to you. So yeah, bit of a digression, but
Right. Yeah, just seeing how you present and how you package the photos. So whether it's digitally or as in prints or with a book, or how you lay them out is so important. Like the photos, you can have great photos, but yeah, it is really that first impression is critical. Whether that is online, choosing a program that will lay them out nicely online, so the first time they look at it, it's like that's quite impressive. Or that photo box idea, or the book idea, or this pitch idea as well, instead of just like a folder full of photos. So I've definitely switched over from that in the last probably 3 or 4 years. Before that, I used to literally just send a USB with a folder full of the high-res images. So, you've got no control over the first time that the client sees it. So now I've got a better system. This has been great conversation. It's got me inspired. I'm sure it's got lots of other people inspired to start personal projects, to keep your photography froth going, but it also can lead to paid work. But I think the biggest takeaway that I got from it is like really honing in on those longer term relationships, or even that last bit, dedicating a lot more time to the actual relationship than the actual physical taking of the photo. That's something that I've seen a lot, and that's probably the reason why your photos have got so much heart, so much feeling and connection. So well done, and just can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your time and sharing your experience with your journey with photography, a small part of your journey with photography. And yeah, man, if people want to follow some more of your work, I know you've got a website that's got 5 flashing images that's not going to take long to explore, but that might get updated. But I know you've got an Instagram page. I follow it. Is that the best way? Have you got some other things online?
Yeah, so I guess, classically the website, mikeguest.co.uk, Mr. Guesty on Instagram, there's a bunch of stuff there. I am trying to put more stuff onto Substack, which was this platform I quite liked. Graphic design, it's pretty ugly, but it's just this thing of writing words, and I read out the words that I write, so people can have a look on there. I am going to try and put more onto there. That's kind of where the work sits. On the website, you can go through and see the Dawn Day stuff, and there was some films that were made, and just loads of randomness that's around there. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm trying to find different ways to share work, and I think the Substack thing is kind of working for me because it's audio, video, photo, and words. And I'm going to play with that. I just need to take that huge stock of stuff that I've written in Grammarly and create it into stuff and put some stuff out there. So yeah, that's where people can find me. And thanks for having me on,
Cool.
Tom. It's it was cool to meet last year. We tried to do a podcast in like 40 degrees, torrential rain outside, both absolutely exhausted. And it was great to hang out and meet. And it's just so cool that we're like almost a year down the line. It's like, okay, let's revisit this. And that's cool because it's like
Yeah.
there's a great example. That kind of failed, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But we had the patience, and here we are. And hopefully, people find one little nug. Like I'm no like master at any of this. This is just my thoughts, my opinions. And if some of it
Mm.
resonates, great. And if you want to have a chat, reach out. I'm a pretty chatty bloke. Generally, voice messages or a phone call. My typing can be a bit out there.
Definitely, mate. Yeah. That podcast, it still had gold in it, but I just thought this format worked better because you could actually bring up your screen because we were sitting next to each other and it was pouring rain and it was fun to do. And who knows that, like you said, well, that might see the light of the day. I haven't even watched it back, but yeah, I really enjoyed this chat. You've been able to share your actual images while we talk, so worked out well, mate. And I'll put some links below this video. I'll share it with the course members and then we'll get it up online on YouTube. So it'd be great.
Cool.
Cool, mate.
Thanks,
Well,
Tom.
thanks again and we'll see you soon.
Catch you soon.
All
Cheers,
right.
man. Bye.
So I really hope you enjoyed that interview with my guest. Really diving into the personal projects, getting your photography stoke back and doing it with purpose, meaning, and just intention, really. That's what I got out of it. And also connecting more deeper with your subject. So that could be an environment, a place, or a person. But just getting that connection, I think, is super important. I don't normally do podcasts, but I've got a few in the pipeline, so it might be a thing to add to within the courses that I do and perhaps inside YouTube as well. So thanks for tuning in today, and I'll put some links below to find out more about my guest's work. But if you've got any questions or suggestions, please let me know.